I feel that dehydrated eggs get a bad rap. If you cook them right and gussy them up a little bit, I think they make a really good hot breakfast.
This is an American Southwest inspired breakfast consisting of scrambled eggs made with cilantro and garlic.
Join me as I put this morning meal together on this week's episode of Making a Mess with the Yankee Camper.
So the first thing we'll need is 6 tablespoons of egg crystals, a half a teaspoon of butter flakes, a quarter of a teaspoon of cilantro, an eighth of a teaspoon of garlic powder, a dash of black pepper, and I'm using dried jalapeno flakes, or you can use crushed red peppers. That works. The jalapeno gives it a little bit more zest and a little bit different flavor. I'm also going to include a small packet of Parmesan cheese and 2 packets of mild taco sauce. In addition, I'll need 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. Combine those ingredients into a paper bag, which I've marked Cilantro and Garlic Scrambled Eggs. So we'll first put in the vegetable shortening, we'll put in the egg mixture, the 2 packets of taco sauce, and the Parmesan cheese. I'll seal that up, put that aside so that I'm ready for breakfast. And as a protein, I'm going to have pre-cooked bacon along with my scrambled eggs. I'll see you out at the campsite.
You may have noticed that the bacon is from Market Basket, where you get more for your dollar. If you live in New England, you're probably familiar with the grocery chain. If you grew up north of Boston, around Lowell, you likely remember Demoulas supermarkets. Other grocery stores have been around, but these stores are an institution with a loyal following. In the first part of the 20th century, Athanasios Demoulas, also known as Arthur, arrived at Ellis Island from Greece after the Greco-Turkish War of 1897 and settled in Lowell, Massachusetts. He married a girl he knew from the old country and, around 1917, opened a small market in the area known as the Acre. They bought a house in nearby Grated and started a family, eventually having 6 children, including George and Mike, who bought the business from their parents in the 1950s. By the start of the 1970s, the single market had grown to 15 supermarkets. When I was growing up, we had an Elm Farms store that became a Purity Supreme, then Heartland Foods, a warehouse-type store in the 80s, which is where my mom shopped. When the Oakdale Mall opened in the 70s, their grocery store was Star Market, which is where my dad would sometimes shop after Mom got a job. There was a Demoulas supermarket on the other side of town and one in the town next door. But groceries usually came from close to home unless we were going to camp. In the early 70s, we had a seasonal site for our pop-up camper in southern New Hampshire. Going there always meant a stop at Granite State Potato Chips and the Demoulas supermarket in Salem, New Hampshire. In the summer of '75, a new store near Rockingham Park opened first as Demoulas, then as Market Basket, even though they sold Demoulas brand items. And there was a store less than half a mile down the road. At 12 years old, I remember thinking that didn't make any sense, but my mom said it had something to do with the owner's family and left it at that. I got the impression this was odd, but otherwise, I didn't really think much about it. That was the start of the grocery store's family rift. However, I'll finish that story in a moment. First, I should get my breakfast started.
It's a beautiful morning here at the campsite, and I'm going to make myself some breakfast of cilantro and garlic scrambled eggs. First thing I'll need to do is take out the ingredients that we packed in our bag. We've got some grated Parmesan cheese, our egg mixture, some vegetable shortening, and 2 packets of taco sauce. Set those aside and put this bag aside. We'll want to mix these egg crystals into some water, so we're going to measure out a half a cup of just plain water. Pour those egg mixture right into the water. And scramble that up. I'm going to finish scrambling these eggs, and I'll be right back. I've finished scrambling the eggs. I'm just going to set those aside for right now. Next, I'm going to take my fry pan from my mess kit, and I'm going to measure out the vegetable shortening. I don't need a lot. Put the rest aside for now. Light the stove, and I'm going to put this fry pan on and let that vegetable shortening start to melt. Now, this doesn't require a very high heat. So once that starts to melt, turn it down. Nice and low, you don't want to burn the eggs. Next, I'm going to open my grated cheese. I'm going to pour that into the egg mixture. And stir that in as well. Be sure to keep an eye on your shortening. You can see that's starting to smoke. I'm going to take that off for right now. Make sure that heat's still going.
You can see those eggs have started to set up. But before we cook them, let me tell you about the 2 Arthur Demoulases. In 1958, the immigrant Arthur Demoulas died. Second generation, George and Mike, ran and grew both the company and their families. As a Greek tradition, the brothers each named sons after their father, Athanasius, and both adopted the American version, Arthur. Telemachus, or Mike, chose his own name for his firstborn son's middle name. George chose Stephen as his second son's middle name. The brothers continued to expand the grocery chain, typically buying the property and building out a plaza with the supermarket as the anchor store. Then, in 1971, George died while vacationing in Greece, leaving Mike alone at the helm of the chain bearing his family's name. However, other family members, including George's widow, still had seats on the board of directors. In 1975, Mike created Market Basket, apparently to skirt a law on how many beer and wine licenses a single chain could hold. He also brought his son Arthur T. on board to learn the ropes, but things were turning darker. I don't like meddling in other families' affairs, but this one had a personal impact. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Market Basket continued to grow. Mike Demoulas had set up the newer chain with only his family controlling the business, while the rest of the family continued with the Demoulas stores. Mud was slung on both sides, but Arthur T. continued to advance his position in the company from starting just after high school graduation to vice president in 1989. 10 years later, after a legal battle spurred on by George's son Arthur S., the court system allowed him to join the board of directors and required Arthur T. to step down. However, A.T. did retain his position on the board. Mike Demoulas passed away in 2003, but the legal battle continued in what has been called the most expensive and longest lawsuit in Massachusetts history. The widow of George's other son sided with A.T. against A.S. on business decisions, and in 2008, Arthur T. Demoulas was named president and CEO of the corporation. By 2011, all Demoulas stores had been revamped and renamed Market Basket. The court also decided that the Market Basket chain needed to be moved under the control of the Demoulas Market Basket Board of Directors. I'd like to note that Arthur T. was well known throughout the grocery stores. Taking a hands-on approach, he made an effort to learn employees' names, their families, check on them when there were illnesses, and believed in profit sharing. He was old school, avoiding gimmicks like store cards and self-checkout lanes, believing that customer service required face-to-face interactions with cashiers. He worked diligently to provide customers with more for your dollar. In 2014, Raphael Evans, George's deceased son's widow, switched sides, and Arthur S. fired Arthur T. In an unprecedented event, the community backed RDT and started to boycott their beloved grocery chain.
Demoulas earlier urged workers to get back to the job until the warring cousins can work things out.
While I was driving to work past the headquarters, the peaceful protests continued through the summer of 2014, me beeping my horn to show support. Store shelves went unfilled by striking workers for customers that refused to shop there. By August, Arthur S. and his family had decided to sell their shares to Arthur T. and his family, and I and the other loyal customers resumed shopping at Market Basket. Since then, the corporation has continued to expand to a total of 95 stores in 4 of the 6 New England states. Despite some of the locations having better customer service than others, based on store management, and fierce competition by other local supermarket chains, it's still recognized throughout the region as where you can go and get more for your dollar. Now you know. I preheated my bacon and put it in an aluminum foil packet. So let's head back to the campsite and I'll finish making my breakfast of cilantro and garlic scrambled eggs.
That's all well and hot. We're just going to add those scrambled eggs right into the pan. Place the cup aside using my spatula. Just let those eggs start to form. While I let those eggs start to form up, I'm going to take my plate from my mess kit and get that ready. I'll also open my 2 packets of taco sauce. The scrambled eggs don't take very long. If they start to stick to the bottom, turn the heat down. You can see those eggs have started to form small peaks. Continue to cook them around until they're completely done. Those eggs are just about done. Still a little wet. Flip them over, let them heat through. While those finish cooking, I took some of my pre-cooked bacon. I cooked that off earlier. I'm just going to put that in my plate. Give these eggs one final flip. Turn the stove off. Plate up these eggs as well. Grab my pot holder, put the pan aside. Take my taco sauce. Add that over my eggs. There is cilantro and garlic scrambled eggs with a little bit of bacon on the side. I'm going to eat my breakfast and then I'll clean up my mess. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel where I bring out new videos every week about camping, cooking in a mess kit, and some of the gear that I use. Also, consider sharing it on your social media to help the people you know become aware of my channel. Thank you for watching.